Colby, thanks so much for coming on the Scholarship GPS podcast. Been looking forward to our conversation. If you would just give us a quick intro to who you are, and then we're going to dive into talking about how college students and maybe even high school students can better prepare for their future careers.
Dave, I really appreciate you having me on here today. It means a lot. Um, my my journey in helping soon to be a new college graduates figure this whole job thing out was me. I was client number one. I came out of college 3 or 4 recessions ago during the housing crisis, where things
Okay.
looked really bleak. I floundered a lot after college. Did not think about looking for a job or preparing myself for the real world until it was way too late,
Hmm.
and really suffered in that first part of my career where I was taking jobs I didn't really like, working with people that I also didn't really like, and just kind of being really listless. I was able to find my footing and built my consultancy as a job coach. I took a lot of the lessons learned, a lot of those hard and painful lessons learned, to help my clients really blossom in their careers. And um, most recently, actually wrote and published my first book called "Employed by Graduation," where basically this is a love letter to my 22-year-old self, saying, "Hey,
Okay.
man, this is what you should have done when you were that age." And so,
Yeah.
um, what I love about working with young professionals and their families is to help them get a leg up in this really, honestly, tumultuous world of being in your early 20s, educated and lost
Hmm.
with, the economy influx, with AI, with hiring at a slowdown. I don't want my clients to do all this hard work and invest all this time and money into
Yeah.
higher education only to settle for a role that didn't require any of it. So for me, it's about selfishly making sure that more of me's don't get turned out into the world when they're
Mhm.
22, and help and knowing that if you can right your ship early on in your career, the rest of your jobs and honestly your life is going to be so much more enjoyable, engaging, and your lifestyle is going to be amazing because you have the work life balance as well as the salary to back up the impact you're going to be making.
That's awesome. I love that you have a personal connection to this. Very similar for how I got into the world of
Hmm.
scholarship coaching. It was, I didn't save enough for my son to go to college and didn't want him to have student loans. So learned everything I could and, worked out, paid only $1,500 for his degree and everything else was covered by scholarships. So
That's awesome.
yeah. Well, what is perhaps one thing that students and maybe even their parents get wrong when they're thinking about how do I get hired after I graduate with my college degree?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the problem is we take what we know about getting into college and think it's the same thing about getting a job. Meaning that if I have a good enough GPA, if I'm involved enough around campus, my accolades will propel me into work, just like it propelled me into college.
Hmm.
That is not the case, right? Like we all know that school is very, very different than work.
Yeah.
And you can have a 4.0 and that's great. But if all your child is doing, if all you're doing as a student is putting your head down and saying, I'm going to work really hard in the classroom and get a really good grade, and that's all you do is, and you come out with, cum laude or summa cum laude, which is nothing to sneeze at, but nothing else, there's nothing tangible for that employer to really hold on to.
Hmm.
And basically, you're telling them is, I'm really good at doing school. And they're questioning, is this person good enough about doing work? And so it's about thinking as college, not simply as just more school, but how do you build up more life, academic, and career exposure and experience to be able to tell a story to that next manager about this is who I am, this is why I'm this way, and this is how you can benefit from hiring me moving forward.
That resonates so well with me because one of the things that I really try to get across to the people who, listen to me or maybe read my blog or whatever is that even scholarships are not just about having a great GPA and high test scores. Sometimes those are required to get yourself in the door, and maybe that's similar with a job. They might say, "Yeah, we'd like to see somebody who did reasonably well in school." But on the scholarship side, they really want to see somebody who has a passion and has experience with something that they're going to do in college and then later in life. It sounds like that's kind of what employers are looking for as well. They want to see a student who, okay, maybe they did well in school, hopefully, but they have some experiences around whatever this job's going to be. Am I hearing that right?
I mean, you need applicability,
Yeah.
right? And ultimately, school is, to oversimplify it, you show up, you listen, you take notes, you memorize those notes, you memorize those lectures. You show up for the test, you match the right answers to the right questions, and you get rewarded.
Hmm.
There's not a lot of memorization and matching at that level when it comes to work.
Yep.
And so you have to be able to demonstrate to your next employer, hey, like I'm able to critically think. I'm able to
Hmm.
ask good questions. I'm able to act independently, to guess and check my solutions. And I'm able to do all that with the mission of adding to the bottom line. Because the more that you come in and say, here, I am, as a 22-year-old comes and says, see, I can do all these things. Here's my unmolded lump of clay. You figure out how do I fit here. You're going to lose out
Yeah.
because it's not that manager's job to figure out how you fit. It's your job to tell the manager how you're going to not only fit, but then make an impact moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, one major difference from colleges to your employer is a college is not a business. I mean, it is a business, but they're not necessarily a for-profit business like your employer is going to be. And your employer needs to know that, yeah, they're going to give you a little bit of time for training and such, but they need to know you're going to have be a return on their investment pretty quickly, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, ultimately, the other big thing about between college and work is that college, you're paying to go.
Yeah.
You're paying
Yeah.
for the privilege, right? And the
Yeah.
work is saying, we're investing in you,
Yep.
both in money, energy, and time.
Hmm.
And the expectation is you're going to exceed that investment with a return on it, right? And so I think on top of the way that I take my clients through it is like, yes, this is what you do, this is what you're passionate about, but how is it applicable in the job? How are you solving problems in a
Hmm.
role?
Yeah.
Then also, how is the business benefiting from you solving those problems?
Yep.
Right. And in business, and especially for profit, there's four buckets.
Hmm.
How do you make the company more money? How do you save the company money? How do you reduce the company's time and process? How do you minimize the company's future risk? And if you're not able to speak those terms, and I would say, 22, 42, 62, a lot of people don't. But if you can set up your child for success to learn how to um, speak business, even if you're not in a business setting,
Hmm.
you make it an obvious case for you to move on in the process and ultimately get hired for that really coveted entry level job
Yeah.
after graduation.
Well, speaking of entry level jobs, I've heard you say that students shouldn't just think of themselves as just a job seeker. Can you
Mm,
explain what you mean by that?
yeah. So if we think about, for myself, my own college journey was an economist. I got my bachelor's in economics,
Oh, me
mainly
too.
because, okay,
Yeah.
and mainly because two things. I dropped out of business school because I didn't think it was possible to learn how to manage people from a book and a lecture series. I thought that was pretty ridiculous. But also, too, is I like the idea of merging business, markets, people, and psychology into one. Right. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of my philosophy comes when my foundation of consumer behavior. So you
Yeah.
mentioned here, Colby, like don't look for jobs. I would say sell how you buy. What I mean by that is, let's say um, you're running late for a meeting and you just finished off your third cup of coffee for the morning. It's been a rough one, and you have coffee breath, right? Let's say you're running downtown and you run into the nearest convenience store and you just grab the first 5 pack of gum that you like the flavor of. You're the cashier, you buy it, you throw it in your mouth, and it does the job. It makes your breath not smell like coffee anymore. You probably didn't look at the back for the ingredients. Maybe you didn't even double check the price,
Hmm.
right? You didn't buy the thing for what it was. You bought the thing of what it did for you, the problem that it solved for you. And so how I train and coach my clients is that you shouldn't be looking for a job. You shouldn't be looking for work to do. You need to be looking for problems to solve.
Problems to solve. Yeah.
You need to be you need a problem seeker, not a job seeker, because ultimately good people will pay for problems to go away
Hmm.
versus features of a product. And so the more that you can communicate to your next employer, this is my education, my experience, my expertise. This is how I've applied it to solve similar problems in the past. And these are the kind of outcomes I've been able to deliver. You go from being a desperate job seeker to an in demand problem solver because people will be chasing after you because they know, excuse me, that you can identify their problem, solve it, and turn around those metrics that are really meaningful to any business leader.
I mean, that's fantastic, and that makes a lot of sense. My first job out of college was in sales, and that was all you're talking about here is using sales methodology to sell yourself to your future employer, isn't it?
I mean, it's about understanding the problem, right?
Yeah.
Like my philosophy is we as humans, as a survivalist species, we value going from neutral to good less than going from bad to neutral.
Hmm.
We will pay out the nose to have somebody solve our problems, take away our pain.
Yep.
We will question if we want to invest in making our lives better. It's just human nature.
Hmm.
So the more that you can remove pain, the more that you can be the Tylenol or the Motrin for your next employer, you're going to be able to write your ticket to wherever you want to go, whatever you want to do. Like it, it, it really turns the things on its head in your career because you're not just settling for work to do. Again, you are excited about seeking out problems that you want to solve.
Fantastic. I mean, I think that's a great philosophy and great advice. So, all right, now we have a mindset for this recent grad as they're out in the job market, but let's maybe even take a step back. What does a career ready student slash graduate even look like?
Mm. So it's a really good question. I think to use language familiar with your audience here, Dave, you have to be a bit well balanced,
Hmm.
right? I think, yes, doing well enough in school. I think being involved on campus, that what I love about my students who are involved on campus is two things. They have a much greater network to rely on
Yeah.
after graduation. They know a lot more people than simply staying close with their dorms, their roommates, their project mates. But then also within those organizations, you have the chance to lead with very little consequence, right? Like you can go to that club or that organization and run for something and do a decent job and learn a ton about yourself and the way that you lead to leverage that. And then you go out there and you go get real world experience, quote unquote.
Hmm.
Now that can be an internship in the field that you want. It can be something on campus. It could be, entry level, minimum wage food service retail, right? I think what's important is to encourage your student to go out there and use college to sample from the buffet of life.
Hmm.
And I would say it's probably the biggest thing that my clients tend to really suffer from is they're so afraid to make the wrong choice. They don't make any choice at all. And so I would rather have your student go out there and say, I'm going to go try the internship. I'm going to go work at the Gap. I'm going to go work at the coffee shop and realize, you know what? I hate this. I
Hmm.
never want to
Yeah.
do this again because
Yeah.
that's also really important. And
Yeah.
that is also value on the resume because you can speak to your next employer and say, hey, little Johnny, like I see that you worked, at the mall that one summer. Like, tell me what you learned there. And it's like, I learned these great things, but also I'm like, I don't like this. Like, I don't like that. And so it brings a level of self-awareness that I think a lot of young people just haven't developed that the right leader that is important and essential for an amazing first job out of college will recognize to say, okay, this kid has something, they're mature enough, they're open enough, they're curious enough, and I can really work with that. So I think, to put a long answer short here for you, Dave, I think it's diversity in experience, but then
Hmm.
clarity in how that works to drive the mission post graduation. Because even if the job itself on paper has nothing to do with what you want to do after graduation, if you can pull a story or a perspective from it, and tell it, it then shows a level of maturity and advancedness to the leader that is probably missing from your child's competition.
Yeah. Yep. Well, so follow-up question, you kind of have answered it here, but so that's what a student, an ideal student as they're going into the job market would look like. How about a student who's just coming into college, say a first year, maybe a second year student? What can they start doing to prepare to be that ideal candidate when they graduate?
Yeah. You're right. We touched on it a little bit, but I think it's that sampling aspect,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yep.
go take a random class, go get an internship, go join a club that's totally out of your normal purview. Go make friends outside of the dorm and outside of class. Like I think that, you know, the cliche is like, that first couple years is there for them to spread their wings. Making sure that your child does that is putting themselves up there. And
Mhm.
I think ultimately allowing themselves to make some mistakes early on when the stakes are really low.
Yep.
Oh, like, oh man, I failed that calculus 3 test or that calculus 3 test or, class. Okay, well, maybe I don't want to major in math anymore then. Like that's okay too. Like I think taking those risks is really important. But I think also too understanding that unfortunately, while you may have to choose a major and maybe start thinking about life after graduation freshman year, first semester when you're 18, giving your child the understanding that these first few years of college is there for you to explore,
Hmm.
to go figure out what you want to do and go understand what is it the heck you don't want to do because both sets of data are really important to set yourself up for success before and after graduation.
Yeah, yep. And it's funny because that's kind of the advice I'm giving high school students in their first and second year is, do all the things and kind of that funnel methodology. Let's start to cut back maybe sophomore year hopefully by junior year, you have found a thing or two that you really like and you can dive deep in. So yeah, it's kind of, it's probably for your whole life, like, right? You have these wide open opportunities and you try a lot of things and you just keep narrowing down and then you're in a new situation in college and same thing, lots of opportunities and let's narrow down and then you're out in the job market and there's millions of opportunities and if you're like me and I don't maybe like you probably are not going to be in the same job your whole life, right? So you're narrowing down, you're trying different things and eventually you're going to hit on what might be your long-term career.
You go wide, you go narrow, you pivot. You go wide, you go narrow, you
Mm.
pivot.
Yep.
Right. And I think again, instilling in your child that like not everything has to be a home run.
Yeah.
Like those
Yeah.
strikeouts and those singles are also really valuable because
Yep.
what I see a lot in my clients now who are coming out of college is that they've done everything by the book and what's expected and it's not working anymore and they're so afraid to try something new and to fail that they do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of fighting, they freeze. And I think that's where a lot of strife comes in with not only students but also parents who just like why not just go do something,
Yeah.
but they've been indoctrinated with like they know the formula, they know the steps, and this is the first time there's no there's no obvious outcome, and so they're really afraid to try. And I think like you said, go out there and sample. Like it's okay to like not like something. It's like heck, whether you're 22 or 3.5 like my own kid, I don't care if you don't like it, but you at least got to try.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Well, you said something there. You talked a little bit about parents and encouraging students. Is there something else that parents can do to, kind of help their college and maybe early job seeker student with?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's something that I'm helping. It's a part of my job description that is becoming more and more of it is kind of being, yes, coach to young people to help them in this transition, but also coach to parents who are trying better to show up for their children. I think on the parent side, it's to go out there and really understand what it's like to be 22, educated, and with not a ton of experience trying to compete out there right now.
Hmm.
It's it's really rough.
Yeah.
Like, that plus AI, it's like I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it's so much harder. Previous generations, your job was or sorry, your degree was a get a job free card, right? And it's just not the case anymore. And so I
Hmm.
think first of all, understanding the market so that you can have empathy for your child, because I can almost guarantee you their lack of success is not due to a lack of effort, which I think a lot of parents tend to default to. You're not trying
Oh
hard
yeah.
enough. You're not doing enough. It's strategy. It's understanding what is the strategy that is missing. And so I think being understanding of the market and what it's like, being there for your child is important, and encouraging them to go out there and try. Because I think it's super hard, and they also don't want to fail, which means yes, they're maybe doing nothing. So if you can give them some coaching or some perspective on, hey, like go out there and go try something, go to this event, go talk to, here's a friend that I have that has been doing what you want to do for 20 years, talk to them, right? So
Hmm.
I think opening up your perspective, opening up your Rolodex, so to speak, to use a dated term, like giving them a little bit, a couple steps down the path and let them take the rest of the steps can be really helpful. Because again, I'll say it again, your child is struggling not due to a lack of effort. They're struggling because they just don't know the strategy. And while you may have spent, hopefully with Dave's help, not as much as you could have on college, you spent a
Yeah.
lot of it.
Yeah.
The thing that unfortunately they're not doing well enough is getting your child career ready.
Yep.
And it's a lot of parents send their kids off to college saying, cool, they're going to get the degree and they're going to get ready to get a job. Unfortunately, colleges give the degree, but they're not doing a good enough job getting ready for the job. And
Hmm.
so your children, again, are not failing due to lack of effort. They're failing due to lack of education and how to do this process and a
Right.
lack of strategy how to do it really well so they succeed.
Well, that leads me to, I guess, my final question for you. Obviously, there is a role for parents to play, but perhaps they feel like they need some help. So, can you talk about how you work with students, job seekers, maybe the whole family, and then we can wrap up by telling people how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Dave. So I work with, a lot of my subject is, the under 25 contingent, people who are just kind of starting out, who are a little bit lost. And it's my job to work with them to figure out not simply what work you want to do, but as we talked about today, what problems do you want to solve? And that mindset shift really gets them into high gear to say, cool, let's go find problems. Let's go have more conversations. I work with them on clarity of career. I work with them on writing their resume, writing their cover letter, updating their LinkedIn profile, and walking them through every single necessary action, logistic, and strategy with the job. How do you apply? How do you network effectively? How do you leverage that network? Obviously, interview practice, which is really important,
Mm.
especially for young people. And then beyond that, offer negotiation. This is a big thing that families tend to and students tend to really miss is that they're just happy to have a job, and so they're not
Hmm.
going to negotiate. You absolutely should.
Yeah.
A company's first offer is never their best, so having that conversation effectively, but I do that work with all levels of professionals, whether you
Okay.
are, upper level, lower level, whether you're pivoting into something new. Maybe some of your families out there are now empty nesters, and maybe mom has been home taking care of the family duties for a long time and is ready to go back into the workforce.
Yeah.
I have a lot of students who send their moms to me to say, hey, like, my mom needs a job. She hasn't done this in a while. So if you feel lost, if you feel like the world's left you behind and you feel like you don't have a ton to offer and you're helpless, I will respectfully and caringly disagree with you. And I would love to talk to you about what hope is out there for you and how to go about it strategically, authentically, and in a way that in the end, you're not simply just getting a job, but you're able to pick between the best offer to say no thank you to the wrong ones and
Hmm.
heck yes to the right one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Makes me almost want to, quit this and start working with you. But I love what I do, so I'm not going to do that. Um, yeah, I don't think you said how people can get in touch with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So my student cohort website is employedbygraduation.com.
Okay.
Sign up there. You can get our newsletter. I have a worksheet there that is a takeaway that allows you and your student to network as effectively as possible. The cliche is true. It is a lot about who you know on
Yeah.
top of what you know. So how to do that effectively. And then I do offer one-on-one coaching and support for students and individuals. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's Kolby, last name Goodman, Kolby Goodman. Feel free to follow me there, connect with me there. Let me know that you found me through Dave and the Scholarship GPS podcast, and I'll bring you into my inner circle and see how I can help.
Fantastic. Well, we'll put links to your website and your LinkedIn
Great.
in the show notes, so make it easy for people. Colby, this has been great. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge to help our listeners hopefully find their next career that they love.
Absolutely appreciate it, Dave.
Thank you.